everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Sharon, and this is a channel that is dedicated to all things related to narcissism. I've always been a fan of Princess Diana. When I was young, she was at the height of her beauty and popularity, so there was just something very romantic to a young girl about a princess, you know, the tiara, the jewels, and the gowns, and the horses, and the pomp, and the circumstance, and of course she had her prince. Every little girl wants her prince, so it was just something about it. Later, I was very surprised to read about her life post-divorce, and it was very sad. I still feel bad about it when I think about it. She was talking about how she essentially lost her kids. When it was the kids' birthdays, holidays, she typically would not be a part of it. She'd be by herself, and they'd be off with her ex's side of the family, you know, with their cousins, and that's great. But she was all by herself, and it was just so sad for that to happen to the mother. And I thought about that later when I was thinking about divorcing my ex, you know, much earlier than I did. He was a narcissist even before I knew he was a narcissist, so we didn't have a good marriage, and I didn't want to be with him, but I wanted to be with my kids. So I'm sitting and I'm thinking there, and I'm like, I can't leave him because I'll lose the kids half the time. You know, I'm picturing myself it was unacceptable for me to lose my kids half the rest of their childhood. I don't get to spend every Christmas with them, every birthday with them. No, it was unacceptable. So, and I know that happens to many people. We stay for the kids. And it isn't just the holidays, it's also other things too. You know, when you're with a toxic person, you are the cleanup crew. You're the one that keeps everything afloat, keeps everything the semblance of normalcy. Now, this is not the greatest thing. Let me just tell you, be very careful who you marry, because when you marry the wrong person, you pay dearly. Almost nothing in your life is as important as the person you marry. Because once you're there, and now you're living this horrible life, and you've made your bed and you have to live with it. I mean, that's essentially how it is for many of us. So, you're the non-toxic person. So you're trying to put everything together and keep up appearances and give your kids some semblance of normalcy, even during the craziest times. If you're not there, what type of crazy are they living in? What type of thing is the other parent letting them do? So you're forced, because oftentimes when you're dealing with a narcissist, they're another child. You have to micromanage the narcissist to a degree to make sure that they're okay, being safe, doing what they're supposed to be doing. It's not a good life. It's horrible. So, you know, this is your life. This is what you're doing. And I was living this life. The thought of all of a sudden, I decided I ultimately could not divorce him. It ended up not working out that way. I was forced to flee from him. However, but that's what I'm thinking. That's what so many people think. But do you want to know, to my shock, my ex and his family actually have nothing to do with my kids at all. There was not a moment of consideration that my kids would not spend close to half their time with their father and or his side of the family. That was just assumed. It was just, yeah, I'm going to eat breakfast later. Just assumed. Yep, I'm going to go to work. Assumed. Yep, of course, my kids are going to be with their father and their family. Assumed. Like, who wouldn't assume that? It didn't happen. And the pain of that, because this is the thing. This is the tricky situation, what you're trying to deal with. On one hand, it's good, right? Because there isn't that toxic person. Aren't these toxic people? But on the other hand, your whole, like for my kids, your whole family, like half your family, just deserted you because they are upset with me, their mother, I guess. I don't even know. You know, there's an epidemic of men, and this is a real problem when you are with a narcissist. The mother of a toxic man is a woman unlike any other. My mother used to always say that my mother has two brothers, and she always used to talk about her mother and those boys, and she'd say, oh, those are, grandma's boys, the boys, they can do no wrong. My mother's like that with my brother too. I don't think I'm like that with my son. I am able to see that he does things wrong, which seems to be like a key indicator here. They don't ever seem to think their boys do anything wrong. It's always someone else's fault. So I think that's what happened with me. I think their son couldn't have done anything wrong, so they must somehow, the kids are attached to me, so they're bad. It's messed up. But these mothers with their boys, my when I got engaged, see, my mother-in-law is one of these people. What I'm trying to tell you here is, I'll tell you a few stories about her, but if you see these type of red flags, if you are not, if you're engaged to somebody, if you're married to somebody, you should be the most important person in their life. You should be, not the mother. If the mother has a pull or a say, that's a huge problem. And when you're dealing with a mother whose son can do no wrong, who do you think is going to be the one that is doing the wrong? You. And your kids are going to be affected by that as well. So my ex and I got engaged in November. And we got engaged in November. My ex-mother-in-law refused to let me see her at all over the holidays. I had to let her son have her, be with her, not me, for the entirety of the holidays. And they took him away to Aruba over New Year. So I wasn't able to see him so we got engaged. I wasn't able to see him on Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, and he was 28 years old, right? So, and you know what, I complained to my mother about this, and she actually said to me, oh, you know how that is. She's just sad. It's her boy. Just let her have this. You can have him next year. No, that is a red flag. That is a red flag. All right. So I was encouraged, and I was like, okay, I'm so used to my whole life just doing, like I said, I was the scapegoat growing up. I was always a scapegoat. Everything was my fault. That was my role in the family. I don't remember if I said this earlier. I grew up in a narcissistic home. So my father's a narcissist. My mother's codependent. My role as the future codependent was I take the blame for everything. I accept all things. I forgive all things. If I'm upset, I'm too sensitive. So that's how I was. So it's okay. Just let her have this, right? So this is what happened. So I let it happen, and it's going to happen again. I guarantee you it's going to happen again if this is you, because it never goes away. So as time went on, so the next year comes around, and it's the holidays, or birthdays come up. And this is how my ex-mother-in-law did holidays or birthdays. Ready? My ex would get whatever he wanted. Now, see, this was an issue that I had with my ex. I could not stand him taking expensive things from his parents. It really, really bothered me, because he would ask them for money, a car, it was just, I wanted my ex to pay for these things himself. If we were going to get a car, I wanted my ex to buy us a car, not his parents. So that used to really bother me, but he didn't care. She didn't care, whatever. She gave him a car, a computer, riding mower, cash, all this stuff. My kids got $200. I got $100. When I said something to my mother, she's like, you know what? I don't believe in that. I wouldn't do that, but just let that go. Whatever. It's not that big of a deal. They want to give it to them. You're a parent. Don't you want to give your kids things? So even though I knew it was wrong, red flag, but I'm ignoring it. These are the type of things that you really have to think about, because when you are in a situation like this, it's horrible when you're married. Then if you get divorced, the toxicness is still going to be in your life. It's still going to be in your kids' lives. And then you're going to be left feeling, at the end of the day, because eventually reality is going to slap you hard in the face. And then you're contemplating these things, feeling like a fool for letting these people get away with everything. And then your kids are affected. And now it's such an ugly, horrible situation that does not have to happen to anybody. After I left my ex, it was at that point that my kids they were cut off. Their grandparents have nothing else to do with them. Their favorite uncle, nothing else to do with them. So this is why, what I said at the beginning about love. Love matters. It does. But life isn't all about love, because if you only did things because you love this person, or you also can fall out of love. think about your commitment to your kids. It isn't just because you love them, it's because you have a responsibility as a parent. You know, I want to make sure my kids are safe and they have this, or they need this. I want to do this. That's reality. That's a real parent. That's a real relationship. Same thing with a marriage, you know. And I wondered about my ex's family because my father-in-law, my ex-father-in-law, passed away. And I've considered this. I've never looked up his obituary. I'm not going to. So don't say I should do it. I'm not going to do it. But I wondered what they put in there, because they've always been conscious about what other people think about the kids in the obituary. Did they just omit them? I suspect that they have carried on as if the day before we got married. So for them, I got married July 20th, 2002. So I think for them, it's July 19th, 2002. And July 20th is like today. They just moved on from now. Like this whole, everything from then on is just, it went away. It doesn't exist. It never happened. But I'm curious in the obituary if it says that, if it says their names, or if it just says, you know, so-and-so passed away and had 2 sons. Does it say the grandkids? I don't know. Did somebody say anything? Have people asked? What did they say? I don't know. Is it kind of like, well, we just don't say anything. We just accept it and they're all toxic and narcissists? I don't know. But I'm very curious what your relationship is with your ex-in-laws if you're divorced, what you think about this, how your life is. Are you starting over too? Are you in a toxic relationship and learning about narcissism? Let me know. I will talk to you guys. I'm trying to make my Friday video. I'm trying to get into form. So thank you for putting up with my random babblings, but I do care and I want to try to help somebody. So I hope you have a great weekend and I'll talk to you guys next week.